The funny part is actually that Facebook allows you to make mistakes in your password.
I did not know that. They actually do that.
Yes.
Hi, and welcome to the second episode of the Surfshark Wave Podcast. I'm your host, Vidas, and today we have a fantastic show for you because we have an amazing guest with us today, Aleksandr Valentij, who is Security Officer here at Surfshark. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm well. Thank you for inviting me to spend some time during this podcast. Well, this is actually the first podcast in my life, and it's quite unusual for me because usually I'm staying in shadow, As information security officer, you're doing stuff what nobody sees, and if you are doing all right, nobody sees the result. So if nothing happens, then I'm doing good. It's like watching, a battle of submarines sitting on the seashore,
Awesome. I wanted to bring you on because, again, you are such a pool of knowledge. We have you on so many projects. I know you did plenty of interviews, and, I think it's important to have a really strong security officer at a security and privacy company. So let's get into I guess I also want to ask you just about your everyday job because you are the security officer, and I think maybe people will have questions about your just daily job. Do you fight off hackers here at Surfshark? What do you do exactly?
Well, if you are fighting hackers manually, you're doing a bad job because everything has to be automated nowadays. So the thing I'm doing right now, it's like setting and maintaining automated systems which protects our company. And first step, it's like deploying those systems. Quite hard task to do because many teams has to put their efforts together. And the next step, when you implement something, it's to maintain those systems, to react to alerts and mitigate all this bad stuff happening. So now we have a stage of some relative stability. Then majority of the systems are already up and running. You have to maintain them, but there's
never a time when you can just rest. There's always something. I guess I could compare your job to just like building a security wall that you always have to maintain, like just keep it strong so that nobody can penetrate it at any cost.
And then someone opens the gate,
Oh, wow. Like one of us?
Yeah.
I see.
So,
well, hopefully we don't do that.
So this is my nightmare, actually, insider threat, because you can do so little about that. So if you try to look back into the biggest data breaches in history, so all those breaches have one thing in common. So social engineering and human mistake.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we'll talk about that because today's topic is actually about the things that we do every day that could potentially be extremely awful for our privacy. And I have actually a list. But before we get to that list, I just wanted to ask, if there's a malicious actor, a hacker, who do they target the most? Can they target your everyday Joe who's just, walking on the street here, they're living their own life?
Yes. And the thing is that regular people are becoming a more and more lucrative target as we move on. Because if you remember this, not ancient time, but maybe vintage times with then we had a dial-up internet. So the threat actors were targeting corporations and some institutions because average consumer, they had nothing interesting for the hackers. Nowadays, everything changed, and average person becomes as good target as a multi-billion corporation because you can get profit practically from anyone right now. You can do try to hack a single company and get your price, or you can hack thousands or millions of average people and get the same amount of profit, maybe even better. And sometimes it's even safer to do it like that because even if you hack thousands of people, usually no one will go after you. If you hack some Pentagon, you're in trouble. So basically, in my opinion, it's safer to hack regular people and the profit can be the same.
I see. And earlier we spoke about, before the podcast, about cybersecurity being extremely a difficult thing. Let's just go into it and see what people can do and what people are not doing in their cybersecurity world. And I have a list of things, and I think the first one that comes to my mind is people not using 2FA, two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
And 2FA is becoming more and more popular, but I thought maybe I would ask you, what do you think about 2FA?
Plain simple, it's basic necessity nowadays. And I don't know, if you want to hear some elaborated answer on this question, how we came to this situation, maybe those questions are hardly related to password itself, because 2FA is like extension or hardening the password. And why do we need to harden the password?
Is it like an evolution of a password?
Yeah, so imagine password as a warrior on a field, and if you remember the ancient times, you had like warriors with leather protection. Nowadays we have like armor plates with some advanced ceramics. So basically things are changing, cyber weapons are evolving, machines that cracking passwords are evolving, and passwords have to evolve. And if you would like to deep dive into the history of passwords, why this happened, and we could actually start with maybe the first recorded cyber attack in history.
Okay. When was it? I feel like...
Okay, do you have any guesses when the very first cyber attack happened?
Like, I would imagine, computers, the internet started in, 60s, 70s? So I would imagine that, it's when the internet started. So it's like 30, maybe 40, 50 years ago.
No, it's almost 30 centuries ago. So we had an event that could be classified as first cyber attack.
All right, let's hear it. What is it?
So imagine ancient Greece, Peloponnesian Wars, 400 years before Christ. And Athenians have the war with Sparta.
Okay.
And Sparta has a very strong ally. City of Syracuse. It's located in Sicily, and Athenians decided that they need to defeat Syracuse to get a phenomenal advantage in this war. So at 400, I think, 13 BC, a huge party of Athenians led by General Demosthenes, they arrived to Sicily and they attacked the city of Syracuse. And the Syracusans were really, really outnumbered, and numbers were very good for Athenians, and it should have been like walk in the park for them. So they broke the first line of the defense, they broke the external wall, but decided not to attack city right now because it was a daytime, and it was easy to spot Athenians for the defenders. So Athenians decided to attack at nighttime.
So they're harder to see and no...
Yeah. So they had to see, and they decided to do a final attack at night. And, attack has started, and they don't have, any night vision stuff. They don't have some fancy flashlights. So basically what happened, Athenian forces were scattered in small groups. And to regroup themselves, they used a watchword, which only was known to Athenians.
Like a password?
Yeah. So if you see some silhouettes in the dark and you're not sure is it foe or friend, you use a watchword, and if answer is right, you just regroup and go forward. And the thing is that it was a credential leak because Syracusan picked up this code and employed very nasty tactic. So
they found out about the...
Yeah. So Syracusan got this password. And then Syracusan see a large group of silhouettes on the horizon. We are listening for the this watchword. If this group shouting this watchword, and this group is much bigger than Syracusan, we retreated immediately. But if the group is smaller and saying this word, so Syracusan replied with this password like friends. So Athenians, friends, join us together, and they lowered their defenses. And then Syracusans attacked this smaller group and destroyed one by one.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And in the morning, Syracusan cavalry just cleaned up the rest of the Athenians, and it was huge disaster. It's a catastrophic failure of Athenians, and basically after this battle, Athenians lost the war, and after this war, Athens were defeated and never restored their previous glory after this event.
Just because of that simple mistake that they made?
No, because maybe only this battle is called battle at Epipole.
Okay.
But this is like key battle to capture the Syracuse. They failed. Syracuse pushed back the Athenians, then Spartans did their trick, and basically Athenians lost the war. And so first data breach in history, and
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I could never guess that it was like hundreds of thousands of years ago.
And you were quite right about the first computers, because the second recorded password abuse was during that time you mentioned, like in 60s. Because in 60s they had like first computers that was quite similar to the modern one,
but they would take like the entire room.
And they have consoles, not like screens, but consoles with lights and stuff. And even during this time, they came to the situation that they needed a password. And this happened in 1961 at MIT. So they had a computer system called a compatible time-sharing system. And the idea was that a lot of specialists wanted to work on this system, but time was limited. So the duration this time, they created a login and password system. So you enter your password and you receive your 4 hours of work time with this system. One PhD student decided that 4 hours is not enough for him, on this system. And this system lasted only for several months when the student hacked it. So basically, he found a file on this system which contained all the passwords and printed out this file.
So they didn't really even secure it. It was just a file.
Yeah, it was a file with the passwords, and it was security through obscurity. So basically, you put file somewhere deep on the system and hope no one finds it.
I think people still do that. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sure there's.
It's like half a century have passed, and they still employ this this vintage techniques. But basically, yeah, they put this file on the machine, and well, majority of guys were quite, disciplined and not even considered this idea. But one guy, he decided that he's smarter than anyone else, and he did what he did. So basically, this first recorded computer password, lasted only for several months.
Okay.
And people started questioning the password itself in the early 2000s. And I remember that in the early 2000s, Bill Gates predicted death of password as a single measure of protection. And around this time, AT&T and Kim.com, he also claims that. So they invented a two-factor authentication system to strengthen the password. And
so it's like, again, evolution of the password. It wasn't just one layer. It's now 2 layers with the 2FA.
So basically, humankind around early 2000s, they realized that passwords are not safe enough, and you need to do something about the passwords. And the best idea we came at the moment, and it is active right now, to employ a two-factor or multi-factor authentication.
So why is password not enough? Because what if you have a really long password? I guess my question is, can you crack any password?
Yes, and the thing is, why we have such huge numbers of cybercrimes? Because people, they do not realize how many ways are out there to steal your password. And for example, people think that the only way to hack your password is to brute force it.
And by brute forcing, you mean like try
to try all the possibilities, check one by one. Yes, this is the method, but it's most desperate method used by hackers, because it's like if nothing works, you use brute force. But beside brute force, you can get your password by abusing password recovery function. You can use social engineering on a support agent of a large company like Apple or Google. You can introduce yourself as a victim and fish this password out of support agents. You can infect the machine of the victim and put a keylogger on this machine, the program which records all the keystrokes. And the amount of methods are such big that it's very easy to steal the password if it's only password what protects you.
I see. So because of that, we need to use 2FA. So does 2FA overcome all of those aforementioned, ways of getting a password?
No.
No? It's still...
Yeah, you can hack the 2FA too, but it's exponentially harder to do that.
Like 100 times more difficult to hack someone if they have 2FA.
I'm not sure about the number, but... this joke about two huntsmen running from the bear and one huntsman putting a sneakers while he's running. And this one. And then the second one tells the first one, why are you putting sneakers? Because you won't outrun the bear even in sneakers. And the guy answers, I don't have to outrun the bear. I have to outrun you. So the idea behind this, if you have 2FA enabled on your accounts and some automated system are collecting passwords, you're just too hard target for them, and they won't spend much time on you. So you must realize that it's quite unusual for hackers to spend time on individual person. At least you did something really wrong and someone really wants to get you good, But usually it's automated bots or crawlers which working like 24/7 and trying to get the weakest of the pack. And if you are using only password, you are the weakest of the pack.
You're the weakest link, essentially. So
and the thing is that they did a research on how many people fell victims of a cyber attack during last year. And around 2/3, the answer in some extent or another, they were victims of cyber attack, or they felt that they were attacked. Well, 2/3, but I think its number is much higher because remaining 1/3 maybe they were hacked, but they don't even know about that. So basically, imagine playing Russian roulette with 4 bullets in chamber. Would you play this kind of game?
I don't think anyone would.
Yeah, but let that statistic sink in.
So why do people just not use 2FA? I know, and I wanted to bring on this topic as well, just talking about, security and privacy over convenience, and I think, 2FA, it's easy to use. I think it's very easy to use. But people still don't want to do it. So why people are still hesitant about using 2FA? Is it laziness? Is it lack of knowledge about, cybersecurity? And they're probably thinking that they're not a target, essentially. Like, nobody wants my information.
Yeah, so statistic is like that. So if you are speaking about private user, 2FA is used by 40% of users. If you are speaking about corporate users, companies and employees, so this number is going like 60 or 75% because of policies employed in companies. So basically,
but not each company has these policies, so that's why the number is not like 100%.
So you have better chances to have your account protected if it's a corporate account, because it's 60 to 75% are protected by 2FA. If you have private accounts, less than half are protected by 2FA, and they did some research. So why 2FA is not used by people, and 33% of answered that they are not using 2FA because of user experience. It's burdening, it's cumbersome, and it's user experience.
That's right, and because you have to pull out your phone, which takes a long time. It's just easier to type in a password, especially if it's a simple password.
For phone is easy. Pulling out your security tokens and entering the password, or receiving the SMS and entering the password. This is cumbersome, but
it is a pain. Sometimes.
So 33% they named that user experience was the a buzz killer. 41% answered that complexity of the 2FA was a bigger problem for them. So they don't understand the technical,
how it works, and
how it works.
It's scary for them just because
which app do you have to download, how to set up it, how to enter the 2FA entry into this app. So it's too complicated for the people to set up a 2FA app and use it. So complexity is 41%, almost the same as user experience. And the last one reason is 36%. They mentioned that it's cost of the solution. Yes, because some solutions, if you're speaking about physical security, you have to buy some physical security keys, some security tokens, and they don't cost $1. They may cost $50 each.
So it's a physical key that you have to enter into your, say, if you want to log into your account, you're gonna put that key,
correct,
like a USB key, into your.
Yeah.
I see. And I wanted to ask you this. I guess this is more goes to the people who make the operating systems. Do you think that operating systems like Google, Apple, Microsoft, they should force the use of 2FA? If you have a computer, you need a 2FA. All websites should have this by default, because I don't think there's a website that doesn't require a password, right? I don't know any websites that do that.
Lucky you.
Well, I'm sure there's some websites that are there, but I think that if every website, and it was a security standard for the entire industry, if every website asked you to have 2FA, I think that would make it better, wouldn't it?
It would make better for user, but it would make bad for the business, for the money. And this is the funny part is, so companies they decided to do such thing about the passwords. So they decided to enforce some password complexity, and what they noticed that they have dropped revenue, and dropped quite drastically, while their competitors without password requirements maintain the same profit. So companies decided that they care more about the profit than about the user security. And maybe you have noticed that in some part of history, we have like spike of websites asking for complex passwords. And then this idea somehow like evaporated.
It's exactly true. Yeah.
And the funny part is, do you know that actually that Facebook allows you to make mistakes in your password?
I did not know that. They actually do that.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, they have the algorithm that they allow, as far as I know, 3 types of mistakes in your password, and it will be accepted. First of all, if you have a reversed capitalization of your password. So basically, if you accidentally pressed the caps lock button and you entered your password in reverse caps. So if you enter this kind of password, it will be accepted.
No way.
Yeah,
that can't
you should try it. And the second one, it's a reverse capitalization. Decided to do that because many devices, like mobile phones, they usually auto-capitalize the first letter of the sentence. And many users make such a mistake not knowing it, because a mobile phone capitalized this first letter. So basically, if you have a first letter capitalized wrongly, its password is okay for Facebook.
That's crazy. Do you think that there should be like security standards somewhere in this industry? Because again, I understand like some parts of profit. I mean, if you're making an account for a business of some kind of service, and there pops up a message saying you need to enable 2FA, I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are going to click away and not do business with that service. But Facebook has no excuse at this point, like just doing what you just described.
Yes, they do. Actually, this method is not as bad as you think, but think about it. This password, in these cases, is not getting weaker in any kind, even getting stronger. So if you want to brute force this password, you will gain nothing from it. So passwords are not getting weaker, yet user experience are not impeded by this security. And this idea about anything, if you can't fight something, just lead it. So the companies decided, if we cannot fight the laziness and strive for convenience of our users, we need to give them what they want, yet not giving up security. Is very hard task to combine both security and convenience. And I have a joke that 2 generals who are fighting on the side of hackers or law enforcement, then they try to hack or anyone. So general laziness and general convenience.
Oh, okay.
So you can see a lot of cases of criminals being caught because they thought, there is no way that some FBI could like track me like for 4 or 5 years. Yes, they can. And after 5 years, people get relaxed. They use easier passwords. Same goes with with convenience. If you have to enter long passwords like many times a day, you said, okay, I'm done with it. I'll make some password which is easy to remember because is getting too inconvenient for me, and people do it, and the numbers of people who do it is quite staggering. And one form of convenience is reusing the password. This is the thing what gives me a nightmare.
I'm just gonna come out and say I'm guilty of this. I do have right now. If you want to hack me, if you're out there and you want to hack me, I do reuse some passwords. I'm guilty of this, but I will, after this podcast, I'm changing those passwords ASAP. But I think it's a good thing to bring up, just sort of recommendations, what to do, because people are struggling. This is a struggle for people. It's a struggle for me. And if there's, at this point, I have like hundreds of accounts online where...
Yes, exactly.
And how do I remember every password?
Yeah.
So how do I do that?
So actually, you don't have to feel ashamed, in doing this, because there is a 72% of people like you. So reusing a password, it's not a fault exception; it's common practice.
Okay, so I'm actually in the majority, not
yes, you are. Yes, you are. You in the majority. So good for you. Psychologically bad for me as a cybersecurity officer, because 72% of people confessed. Maybe the number is much higher, that they reuse their passwords. And password reusing, it's such a huge problem. And if you want some case to understand why this is so bad, imagine you're using the same password for almost everything, for your social network, for your payment providers, banking, and some, cheap web stores, which don't even have enough money to hire some, decent IT guy.
But they have good deals, so you go in there
Yes.
and make an account.
You make an account,
and you reuse the password.
You use the password, and like in a few months, this website gets hacked, and basically they get your password, your email, and the next thing that like any decent hacker would do, employ a tactic called password stuffing. So basically, it's like some software, some bot, which takes a database of leaked passwords and try entering those passwords anywhere, like eBay, PayPal, Facebook.
So it's an automated system,
System which works in like fascinating speed, and they just trying all passwords they got on all websites they know, and nowadays it's databases of leaked passwords counts like billions of passwords, and if you check your emails against those databases, like have been pawned and stuff like this, you probably will find that you had your password or your any other sensitive information leaked at some point of history. And if you have even a single record that something was leaked, you are a potential victim of credential stuffing. And the bad thing is that if you think that only small web shops can be a victim of this kind of hack, think again. Because even the biggest names in the industry,
they still get hacked. They still
get hacked. You can name huge companies, and I don't want to do bad advertising on these companies, but you perfectly know how I'm speaking about. The bird thing, the website with F letter on the logo,
yes.
Some gaming company.
Yes.
So
yes.
And they leaked billions of passwords. And
so what can people do? Because again, it's a struggle. So what is a good practice for creating passwords? And let's say if you have 50 websites and you want to make a unique password for each one of those websites.
Okay, so maybe today it will be the first time I'll give up my little secret. How do I do? I call my method password fizz buzzing.
Okay.
Do you know what fizz buzz means?
No, I do not.
So fizz buzz is like a children's game. Then both players name numbers in sequence, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And if number you're about to say can be divided by 3, you say fizz instead of it. Okay. If number is divided by 5, you tell buzz instead of this number. If number divided by 3 and 5, you tell fizz buzz. So let's employ this tactic on our letters. So imagine that if your first letter is voice, write fizz at the beginning of the password.
Okay.
So we have eBay. So first letter is
it's E. Yes.
So the beginning of your password would go like this: fizz. Okay. Now you decide to put some special symbol after this special word. For example, you can decide that if it's a finance-related website, you could put a $sign. If it's some social network, you could put a hashtag sign. If it's something important, like personal important, like your photos, you can put a exclamation mark. So fizz is because of first vowel. Then you put a special symbol, and then you put the name of the resource, eBay.
Oh, so I see what you mean now. That is a good sort of way of creating passwords.
And now after the eBay, you put some number. Don't use 69 or 420, it's so obvious. so put some special number for you easy to remember, and then close this password by the fizz buzz of the second letter. So letter B is consonant, yes?
Yes.
So you put word
buzz.
Buzz, correctly. So this is my algorithm. So eBay. So first letter E is vowel. That's why we use fizz. Then it is finance website. We put $sign. We put eBay. Is it like name of this resource. Then you put your number 69, and then you put buzz because second letter is B consonant.
So you could use this formula to create your own sort of algorithm, and your own words. Maybe instead of FizzBuzz, you could say, I don't know, wave and podcast or whatever.
Yes, and you have to remember this algorithm quite well. And basically, if you go to some website in 3 years,
and I can see the potential problem that what if the website changes names? Facebook is going to be Meta eventually. So there is. I mean, that happens very rarely.
It's not perfect, but imagine the password length is immense.
It's crazy, it's super long. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing this algorithm method. It's really
so password fizz buzzing. I call it this way. I'm not going for copyright of this name, but this is the way.
TM trademark.
Trademark. Yeah. So yeah. Fizz buzzing. Password fizz buzzing by Alex.
But I'm wondering, what if people, even if this method is because there's a lot of lazy people out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that, but. Is a password manager good enough?
Yes, it is. I'm not into that group that says that password managers are bad because you never know who behind this password manager. Yeah, it's quite a paranoid reaction. But every time you have to measure, constant pros of this solution, and it's quite hard to find something better right now than using a password manager because every other solution is much worse. And if you don't want to mess around with my password fizz buzzing, if it's too complex to you, just use a password manager.
All right. So thank you for sharing those tips on passwords and 2FA. I feel like after this podcast, people will start think twice before not deciding to get 2FA.
Yes, you should, because if you want some a real-life scenario, imagine your password is leaked on some cheap internet store. Then hacker takes these passwords and unlocks your email. If hacker has your email, he basically has all your accounts which are linked to this email because he could abuse password restoration function. When he has passwords to all of your accounts, hackers could hack into your iCloud account. And those, by hacking your iCloud account, they have all your photos. They have your GPS location. They may have access to your phone calls, messaging. And they may have access to all your banking, all your money. So basically, just by leaving the unprotected password somewhere else, it could lead like a butterfly effect to total destruction of your digital identity.
Which is scary, extremely scary.
And the scary thing is, it's how easy it is to do it. It's very easy to do it. And you don't need special skills to do it. Actually, they had a study about cyber attacks, and they found out that from 97 to 99% of all cyber attacks, they employed social engineering. So basically, the hacker, as you imagine them, they are not those guys who are very good with electronics and computers. These are good psychologists.
Okay, that's actually a good topic to talk about, social engineering, because it is a big problem nowadays. So these guys are actually pro-level psychologists who can make you do anything.
Yes, and the problem is that number of psychologists is much more higher than that number of technically good hackers. So basically, what I want to say that if you have some numbers in your head regarding how many hackers out there, multiply it by a huge number, because hackers are not only the guys who are good with computer hackers, it's psychologists too.
Okay.
So there is a lot more of hackers than you might think about them. So, and it's very, and a lot of tools for hacking, they made so convenient that almost anyone can use them. It's quite easy to find all this leak database online if you spend some time. It's very easy to download password stuffing software. It's very easy to download password cracker. And the thing is, almost anyone can do it if you invest some time and effort.
So let's paint a picture here. Let's just put an average Joe and let's paint a scenario. a hypothetical scenario of what a social engineering attack could look like for this person. So let's say they get a call or something. What would that look like?
Well, I'm not putting my money on call because keeping in mind today's people, they are afraid to make phone calls, and people are afraid to answer the calls. So this is a bad idea for social engineer to attack using this vector, because majority of your victims won't answer this call. I would do something with messaging, with messengers, with Discord, with for all the guys' emails. So basically, the attack vector would be the communication channels you're using the most. So expect getting some phishing message on Discord, on some messenger, and these scenarios and the ways we try to hack you, it's like infinite. And if you think that you will receive email or message, I'm a Nigerian prince with $5 million, that's all, think again, because the scenarios are really, really good, and they can target anyone, and anyone could fall into that. So basically, if social engineering are employed against you, you probably the high percentage of chance that you would receive some kind of message from outside asking you to do something which is beneficial for the threat actor. Clicking on some
a link of some kind.
Yeah, it's classic. To download or open some file is also classic.
And it could even start without a link. It would just start as a conversation of some kind.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes they have this kind of communication just to gather information for next attack. For example, if hackers like to send like short and almost nonsense letters to companies asking nothing. But the thing is, they waiting for out of the office emails, auto replies, to get a template of company email. So when they receive this auto reply, we have a corporate template of legit email, and the next attack, the real deal, will be done on this nice looking template, and which much more convincing that blank letter.
And it will make them feel like, oh, this is coming from that
So so during the first attack, they would receive as I mentioned before, a template of the letter. They would receive a legit name of your colleagues, and they could impersonate both template and both colleague.
And that's already enough information to start an attack.
And imagine some big boss is having a vacation, and they got the name and email of big boss. And imagine someone in the company getting some letter from CIO asking to do something as soon as possible. And a lot of people, because of this sense of urgency and fear of superiors, would do stuff without double checking the source of this letter. This is like psychology, to make your victim uncomfortable, make your victim anxious, and people will do mistakes. Yeah, so if you are a target of social engineering, expect the bad guy trying to make you anxious.
And you need to question them. Like your defense is probably just questioning every move every thing that they say, and you just ask them like, is this really the guy that I work with, or is this really the person that they say they are?
Maybe not the person, but the outcome they want from you. If you should set some mental red flags for yourself, after those you won't do anything. For example, if someone asks to transfer money, this is a red flag, no matter the story.
I see. That actually is a good point. Just question what they're asking you to do.
Yeah, don't analyze the trip, analyze the destination.
But I think the problem is that sometimes people just forget about that, and they just do it anyway. They just they forget about the action that they're doing and the potential consequences of that action. So they're just going to do it anyway. But it is a good point to do that. Now, you also mentioned about a boss going on vacation. And this was another topic that I wanted to bring up, is about the social media world that we live in. With the rise of Instagram, TikTok, Facebook has been a while for years, and Twitter. Nowadays, people share so much information.
Too much information.
And they share photos.
Think about the ingenuity of these guys and how many information can be retrieved from those photos. we had cases then kids of rich and influential people were kidnapped because the kids posting exact location where they at school, at home, and the bad guys analyzed the movement of this kid, and they kidnapped kid and asked for ransom. And
overshare everything.
And imagine yourself taking a selfie at your workplace, and behind you is your work screen with confidential source code with terminal window with IP addresses, your network structure. And actually we had this case in our company, and then our colleagues shared this kind of photo and with really sensitive information on the screen.
I see. I think I remember that when it happened. Yeah, that's also crazy. So this world, it is a scary world for everybody who understands cybersecurity. I think it scares me. I think people overshare a lot of the things.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know that person, you can know so much about a person, where they live, what they do, everything. People just love to share what they do, and it's an unfortunate event that we have these criminals that can get this information out of us from just us posting on social media. So just to sum up our just general tips, so use a strong password. Hopefully, you used the algorithm that we shared. Use 2FA. Don't fall for social engineering tactics or anything like that. Don't fall for sketchy links. Is there a way to check links maybe before?
Yes. There are some websites, if you have some sketchy link, and usually sketchy links are those which are shortened, where you can't see the exact content which is behind it, like a goo.gul. These shortened links or tiny URL. And there are some websites you can Google shortened links expander,
and it will give you an exact.
It will give you a website. You just paste this official link at this website. It will expand it, and you can use a website virustotal.com. You can paste this link on this website, and it will not only expand this link, but also will check by antivirus software or if it's safe or if it's malicious. But keep in mind that there is no silver bullet for any solution, and if it's really, really fresh malware, even the coolest antivirus solutions won't help you. So the last line of defense is your common sense. So to sum up, you were perfectly right. So password manager and 2FA.
All right, Aleksandr Valentij, our security officer here at Surfshark. Thank you so much for coming on, and I do hope to have you join us for a future episode, because you know so much about cybersecurity, and I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of all the cybersecurity topics that we want to cover on this.
Yes, you did. you left some dents on my surface.
So we hope to have you in the future, and thank you guys so much for listening. And again, if you want more of these podcasts, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But for now, I have to say goodbye from us here at Surfshark. Bye-bye.
Bye.